manager made it official.
My feeling was that just throwing more employees into a bad situation was not the answer.
We're going 360 on Aurora's decision and what it means for the immediate future of an embattled police department.
Plus, Denver fills a gap in public safety by opening a new center to help people in crisis.
We need to send the proper resources in the proper direction.
We decided we were tired of waiting to be rescued.
And bringing life to a Colorado food desert. A new development will offer fresh groceries and affordable housing to Denver's Montbello neighborhood.
Dignity, pride, diversity. That's what this space is going to recognize.
All right, first to 5, we're monitoring 2 breaking stories in Boulder.
Crews have just put out a fire south of the city, just south of the in-car burn area. This fire was burning at the Shanahan trailhead. You can see it here. That perimeter around that fire is now safe, and crews are just putting water on the hot spots.
All right, good news here. Also, we're monitoring this sinkhole in Boulder. This is Arapahoe and 55th Street, and police say it is still growing in size. And as you can see, there's an RTD bus sinking, actually sinking right now in that hole. Police say all the passengers got off safely, and once we get more information on what's going on there in Boulder, we'll bring it to you on air and on the denverchannel.com.
Busy day in Boulder. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on Denver 7 News at 5. I'm Jacqueline Allen.
I'm Shannon Ogden. Denver 7 was the first to tell you that Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson was being pushed out of her job, and today the city manager officially fired her.
Now, before we get to that, it is important to provide some context on how we got here. Vanessa Wilson had been with the Aurora Police Department for 23 years and assumed the role of interim chief when former chief Nick Metz retired. She formally became chief in August, taking over a department that had lost the public's trust.
Now, whether she was able to restore the department's reputation is a conversation for another time. What feels obvious tonight is that she was unable to gain the trust of her department. In October, the Aurora Fraternal Order of Police passed a no-confidence vote, 442 to 16. Well, today Wilson said, quote, she is proud of the progress this department has made during the myriad of challenges that we have faced. And she added that she's proud of her police officers and her time as chief. Denver 7's Jennifer Kovaleski broke this story of Wilson being on her way out, and she begins tonight's 360 in-depth coverage. Jennifer?
The city manager gave us 2 reasons for firing Wilson: her lack of management and overall leadership of the department. The city manager says it had nothing to do with the records backlog we reported on yesterday.
There are 2 main themes that continue to rise up as top of concerns: overall management and overall leadership.
City Manager Jim Twomley announcing the firing of Aurora's police chief.
In terms of the many crises that we have experienced, I think she did very well in responding to those. There's more to managing a police department than that aspect of it.
Denver 7 Investigates first reported Chief Vanessa Wilson was on her way out almost 2 weeks ago. Today, the city made it official.
She was not fired for cause. She was fired as an at-will employee.
Wilson's termination comes a day after we broke the story of an independent review finding a massive records backlog. More than 2,000 cases waiting in a queue, delaying investigations. Those crimes involved murder, child sex abuse, and carjackings. Mayor Kaufman says he supported the chief until he learned of the serious records problem.
I think compromised the public safety of our city. I think that was and is a monumental failure of leadership.
But the city manager, who has the final say on the chief's firing, says it wasn't solely about the records backlog.
She wasn't fired because of the records problem.
Chief Wilson's attorney says the city knew about the records problem long before this report. As the city manager, when were you aware of the records backlog, and why wasn't something done sooner?
I became aware of the backlog in the transcription process on March 18th when I read the report from PRI. I immediately sent an email to the chief saying that I needed a report, a plan from them.
So to be clear, you weren't aware of this for months, as Chief Wilson's attorney has said.
I became aware of it when I read the report on March 18th.
Twomley strongly denying those allegations. Wilson's attorney put out a statement right before the news conference. She called the chief's firing a concerted campaign by conservative city council members to smear Chief Wilson's reputation and credibility. Is the city prepared for a lawsuit?
I don't want to say it, but the city gets sued from time to time, and so we're ready to defend whatever lawsuit comes.
Powerful words from the city manager. Now the city is paying Chief Wilson a 12-month severance as agreed to in her offer letter. Wilson's attorney said we can't expect a press conference sometime soon, but we're told not today. So it is possible we could hear from the now former chief. Jacqueline?
All right, you've been out in front of this all the time, Jen. Good reporting. Thank you. And we are hearing from multiple lawmakers and Colorado leaders reacting to Wilson's firing. State lawmakers representing Aurora in the legislature sent us this joint statement. It says in part, quote, "The firing of Aurora's police chief will set back the critical and long overdue efforts currently underway in Aurora to ensure accountability and integrity in our police department." We also spoke with Aurora City Councilwoman Allison Coombs. She believes it's unfair to pin the problems of the backlog of police cases entirely on Wilson.
As far as the records, she's asked for the resources before, multiple times in her time as chief to address this issue. And when the city manager recognized the issue and dedicated the resources, she was able to turn it around pretty quickly from the time that it was reported to today. So I think that it's irresponsible to blame the chief for a problem that she wasn't given the resources to address.
Aurora Division Chief Christopher Jewell will take over as interim chief while the city searches for a permanent replacement. Now, installing a new chief will require a majority vote by Mayor Mike Kaufman and Aurora City Council members.
We have much more on what led up to Chief Wilson's firing up right now on the denverchannel.com. You can also see our past stories leading up to Chief Wilson getting pushed out. That's on the free Denver 7 Plus app.
Today, President Biden announced new sanctions against Russia, targeting the country's banks and banning all new U.S. investment in Russia. The U.S. also will send another 10 anti-tank missiles to Ukrainian forces. The U.S. has now provided more than $1.7 billion in security assistance to Ukraine since Russia's invasion. The UN now says close to 1,500 Ukrainian civilians have been killed and 2,200 wounded. Well, today, Denver city leaders discussed public safety issues and crime levels in the city.
Now, this morning, leaders ran through their plans to try to address the root of the problem. Denver 7's Byron Wang listened in.
Every week, about a fifth of the people booked into Denver's jail come with a mental health or suicide alert.
Jail is not meant for recovery. Jail is meant for people who commit crimes.
And Carly Salen knows it's been used for both.
I was in the jail every day dealing with individuals with severe and persistent mental illness who were cycling in and out of jail frequently.
She's now with the STAR program, which pairs a mental health clinician with a paramedic to respond to low-risk 911 calls.
Starting to look at these issues through a public health lens.
That's a key piece of a long discussion with Denver City Council this morning.
The critical thing is looking at preventing crime.
Where several agencies spoke about the public safety challenges in our community, which include an increase in crime, illegal guns, youth violence, and cheap drugs that are deadly.
To equate behavioral health or substance misuse with the rise in crime, I think would be incorrect.
Still, one of the solutions recommended, expanding behavioral health responses and alternatives to police.
We need to send the proper resources in the proper direction.
Resources like the STAR program.
We are really trying to look at people's problems from a holistic approach and recognize that there isn't a one-size-fits-all plan.
Alongside other measures like recruiting and retaining law enforcement officers, engaging with state lawmakers, and the collaboration between agencies like the police department and public health to address all sides of the story. Byron Wang, Denver 7.
And another solution presented today is a new assessment, intake, and diversion center. It will be known as an AID center. It's set to open this summer, and it's alternative place to send people instead of to jail. It will also help people who have active warrants for low-level, nonviolent crimes.
Well, you know, pickles is a thing that everybody likes.
Their dills are sweet and spicy.
A local nonprofit is giving others a second chance by giving pickles to the people.
They always want more than just a job. They want to learn how to run their own business and be an entrepreneur. And that's really the goal of the People Pickles.
Those winds are still whipping. I'll go hour by hour as to when calmer conditions will come our way.
Lake Street gets a fresh coat of paint.
And the Rockies secure a good arm for the ceremonial first pitch.